Hey there, wake up. It's Means Morning News. Just after 11 a.m. on the East Coast, I'm Sam Sachs. It's the Friday show. It's also World Horse Day. So in honor of all the equines out there, we'll be dubbing this morning's episode with a bunch of neighs and squeals so they can understand it. And we begin in a courtroom in Massachusetts, where stunning testimony was heard in a case challenging the Trump administration's ideological deportations against foreign-born college students. The trial began this week and involves a group of academic organizations that filed suit against the White House's deportation policies, alleging they violate their members' First and Fifth Amendment rights. During testimony on the third day of the trial, Peter Hatch, an ICE official involved with the Homeland Security Investigations Office, admitted that the targets of deportation raids were provided by far-right Zionist organizations with ties to Israeli intelligence, like the Canary Mission and Betar, groups that have long tried to dox pro-Palestinian voices in the U.S., especially on college campuses. Now, this confirms what was long suspected, because representatives from these groups previously boasted how they were working with the administration to round up political enemies. Hatch further testified that he formed a task force to compile reports based on the provided lists that would then be used by the State Department to revoke individuals' legal status. And he admitted that ICE investigators relied on the lists without bothering to look into the methodology behind them or why people were included on the lists. Still, Secretary of State Marco Rubio stripped legal status from hundreds of foreign students based on those sketchy lists. It's how people like Mahmoud Khalil and Rumeysa Ozturk and others were taken off the streets and thrown into detention for weeks, and in some cases, months. Khalil spent 104 days in custody and was only released on June 20th. The government is still trying to deport him, but he's fighting back with legal action of his own. This week, Khalil filed a $20 million lawsuit against the Trump administration for false imprisonment, malicious prosecution, and for smearing him as an anti-Semite. Khalil said in a statement that if he wins, he'll share the settlement with others who've been targeted by Trump. He added, quote, "There must be accountability for political retaliation and abuse of power. I will continue to pursue justice against everyone who contributed to my unlawful detention or spread lies in an attempt to destroy my reputation, including those affiliated with Columbia University. I'm holding the U.S. government accountable, not just for myself, but for everyone they try to silence through fear, exile, or detention." While in custody, Khalil missed the birth of his son. In related news, a federal judge in New Hampshire certified a class action lawsuit against the administration's order to end birthright citizenship. The decision effectively puts implementation of the order on hold via a nationwide injunction until its legality is determined in the courts. Last month, the Supreme Court restricted the ability of lower court judges to issue nationwide injunctions against the president, but the High Court did allow them for certain cases that have broad effects, which the judge determined qualifies in this case. All right, now on to the U.S. Labor Department, which announced a sweeping deregulatory initiative at the start of July. Labor Secretary Lori Chavez-DeRemer said her department was targeting 63 regulations that she claimed were outdated and, quote, held back American workers and businesses for far too long. Well, anyone with even a shred of knowledge about U.S. politics would know, reading that quote, that this is not actually a campaign to improve the lives of workers. And really, this is about making it easier for businesses to exploit their workers and obscure their conditions of employment. Secretary DeRemer didn't provide any examples of what regulations were being repealed, only that they would be published from time to time in the Federal Register. And if you look over there on the same day this press release was put out, there was indeed a deregulatory action published by the Labor Department. So, what's this first move that's going to unleash the potential of the American worker? Free them from the burdens of the regulatory state? Well, it's a rule drafted under the Biden administration that required employers to publish more data about musculoskeletal injuries in the workplace. That's what's being repealed, and that's somehow going to help workers. The justification provided by the department was that, quote, the record does not demonstrate that a musculoskeletal disorder column would provide useful information to employers and employees at the establishment level. Actually, it would provide useful information. It has provided useful information, like just how dangerous it is to work at Amazon. Back in February 2023, the same Labor Department published a report exposing the dangerous work in Amazon warehouses due to the prevalence of musculoskeletal injuries. The department issued citations, in fact, against 3 Amazon warehouses for exposing workers to a high risk of lower back injuries and other disorders. Now, what's funny about that 2023 labor report on Amazon is that it's now affixed with a statement at the top that reads, quote, as of January 20th, 2025, information in some news releases may be out of date or not reflect current policies. Unclear if that statement means the administration now disputes the number of musculoskeletal injuries occurring at Amazon or accepts the number but thinks those injuries are good now. It all likely has to do with the fact that Amazon would later donate $1 million to Trump's inauguration committee and was also able to get one of their executives, in fact, an executive who oversees worker safety, or lack thereof, nominated to be the next administrator of the Occupational Health and Safety Administration. David Keeling's nomination to be the next head of OSHA advanced out of a Senate committee at the end of last month. Amazon is making progress toward reducing workplace musculoskeletal injuries, not by making the job safer, but by using workers that don't actually have musculoskeletal systems. According to new reporting from the Wall Street Journal, the e-commerce giant has now deployed more than 1 million robots in its warehouses and other workplaces, almost equal to the number of humans it has working at those facilities. And finally, incredible things are happening in Mexico. This week, during a news conference with President Claudia Sheinbaum, a new chocolate bar backed by the government was unveiled. It's called Chocolate del Bienestar, and it's a healthier and cheaper alternative than what's being offered by foreign multinational chocolate corporations. It retails for about $1, and it's all made possible thanks to a large investment by the government to buy 160 tons of cacao from local farmers, boosting the small-scale farming industry in places like Tabasco and Chiapas. Over 1,800 indigenous farmers benefit from the program, and it's totally free from artificial flavorings and synthetic sweeteners, providing consumers a healthier, low-priced chocolate treat that has cultural roots. Chocolate will be sold through a network of 27,000 subsidized grocery stores known as wellness stores that serve communities across Mexico, particularly poorer ones. It's because of stuff like this that President Sheinbaum currently has an approval rating hovering around 80%. Numbers that are just unthinkable among U.S. politicians. If one day humanity is obliterated by an asteroid slamming into Earth, there will be a decent chance it happened because of a decision the Trump White House recently made. The administration's budget proposal for next year includes the cancellation of the OSIRIS-APEX mission, which would have seen a space probe rendezvous with a large asteroid making a flyby Earth in 2029. The point of the mission is to gather data on the asteroid, known as Apophis, learn from it so that humanity is better positioned one day in the future if a similar asteroid is on a collision course with Earth. As Ars Technica reported, this may be the one chance we get to make it count, because asteroids this size don't often come this close to Earth, about once every 7,500 years. And NASA planned an elegant mission to intercept it, one that could be done on the cheap by space exploration standards. The agency already has a probe in space that in fact already conducted a mission on an asteroid. The OSIRIS-REx craft rendezvoused with the space rock called Bennu back in 2020, collected some samples, and shot the samples back toward Earth. A couple years ago, NASA engineers then programmed OSIRIS-REx to meet up with Apophis in 2029 and conduct observations for 18 months. That was the plan up until last month, when the White House Budget Office proposed canceling the mission for no reason. Ars Technica cited a report last month from the NASA Office of Inspector General, which knocked the space agency's handling of planetary defense from asteroids. It cited NASA's lack of resources, funding, and planning as factors weighing down progress. And that's only going to get worse. The space agency is getting eviscerated with budget cuts aimed at slowly replacing public exploration with corporate profit seeking. NASA's science budget is getting slashed by nearly 50%, which prompted outcry from every former NASA administrator who is still alive. They all signed a letter to Congress urging against the cuts. Meanwhile, the space agency is now also getting a new leader. Trump announced that Transportation Secretary Sean Duffy will take the reins as interim NASA administrator. Duffy has so far overseen the evisceration of the U.S. air traffic control system, so this is an example of failing up in altitude as well. The music is catchy, but it's a reminder that we live in a time of monsters. Let's get right to it. This week's Rich Dick is Bill Ackman. The New York hedge fund manager makes his return to the barrel just a few weeks after he received the dishonors for being a part of the cadre of billionaires freaking out about Zohran Mamdani's primary win in the city. Ackman's still freaking out about it. He's promised to put millions of his billions of dollars into whatever campaign is best positioned to challenge Mamdani in the general election. Also, Ackman's Twitter account is a stream of invective against Mamdani. He often shares racist smears against the mayoral candidate, posted by racist Zionist troll accounts. He's accused Mamdani of being anti-Semitic, while at the same time, Ackman is posting support for Elon Musk, one day after Musk programmed the Twitter AI chatbot Grok to turn into Hitler. It's all pretty vile stuff, but none of it is why Bill is nominated this week. No, instead, he's nominated because of this. This right here is video of 59-year-old Ackman making his debut in an official ATP tennis tournament. Yes, it was the lower-level Challenger Tour, and yes, it was one of the weakest tournaments on the schedule, the Hall of Fame Open in Newport, Rhode Island. But still, what the hell's going on here? Why was Ackman allowed to be on the court? He's the one serving, by the way, and I use the word serving loosely because he has yet to serve the ball in play, as you can see. The match went about as you'd expect. Ackman and his partner lost in straight sets, 6-1, 7-5. That's even though Ackman's opponents didn't appear to even be trying that hard. And even though Ackman's partner in the match was 32-year-old tennis star Jack Sock, once a top 10 player in the world and a two-time doubles champion at Wimbledon. A doubles master, you might say. But Mr. Sock couldn't make up for the enormous inequality in skill on the court due to Ackman's presence. Here was a write-up of the match from the New York Times, a fairly sympathetic outlet to the billionaire class. Quote, Mr. Ackman's day in the sun seemingly fit into the proud and occasionally tragic tradition of very rich men doing athletic things and embarking on adventures, sometimes with questionable qualifications. His first return of serve landed about 20 feet from the net, his side of the net. His second return was slightly better, at least, landing squarely in the netting. And his first time serving, already down 2-1 in the first set, didn't go much better. There was a double fault, an unforced error, and a volley into the net, 3-1. Damn, even I can double fault it and miss the net by 20 feet. By shoving his way into the tournament, Ackman kept out actually qualified young players who are looking for their break in the sport, people who've been grinding, and people with far more talent than Ackman. But I'm sure that is something that didn't even cross the mind of the billionaire, and if it did, it was quickly dismissed because he's entitled to his Make-A-Wish moment. Former tennis champion Andy Roddick spoke on behalf of the journeyman in the sport. He said on his podcast after the match, quote, "You don't give a wild card to someone who 50 players at my club are better than him." There was obviously an exchange of something. Ackman in the Tennis Hall of Fame, which hosts the tournament, claimed he didn't directly purchase an entry into the competition, that it was his partner, Sock, who won the event a few years ago and thus got the wildcard invite to play. As for why Sock chose Ackman as his partner, well, that's where the billionaire influence comes in. Also, it doesn't hurt that Ackman is a major donor to the Tennis Hall of Fame. His name is on the org's founders' circle. It appeared Ackman also had his eye on securing some sort of history in the sport. When he announced on Twitter last week that he would be playing in the tournament, he claimed that if he won, he would be the oldest player in history to secure ATP points. Well, we don't have to worry about that anymore since you lost, but even if you had won, Bill, you wouldn't be the oldest, or even the second oldest to collect points, so no record for you. In the end, all Ackman proved is that a billionaire can leverage their influence to get into a professional tennis tournament, but they can't use it to acquire any talent or any shame, apparently. Let's hope Ackman's L streak continues into November when he learns he also can't buy the next New York City mayor. Bill Ackman, you are this week's Rich Dick. Okay, friends, the show ends today with a sunrise from Florida. And it's another one from Ormond Beach, the place that yielded your humble news host. It was sent in by Justin, who I actually went to elementary school with. Enjoy. Thank you, Justin. And really good to hear from you again, my man. That's the show. Thanks for watching, and thanks to the team behind the scenes. Find more MMN at means.tv. We also have a YouTube and podcast channel, and you can find us on Twitter, Instagram, and Blue Sky. One day capitalism will fall. Until then, we'll be right here. Except next week. It's our last extended break of the summer, so no shows next week. That means I'll see you again a week from Tuesday. Don't worry, It's going to fly by.